الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. We're talking about the many lessons of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and one of the lessons that we learn from this rich historical event of Karbala and the martyrdom of Sayyid al-Shuhada and his companions is encouraging us to be hopeful, encouraging us to be an optimist, and to never be in despair. Last week we talked about some of the factors of despair. We said that sin, failure, comparison, stuck in a mechanical life, these are some of the factors of despair. And that when we remove this from our lives, we'll be more hopeful. When you look at Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and you see the great trial and test that he had, how he was outnumbered, 100 or 72, the common opinion says 70, the common number is 72 versus 30,000 people. How did Imam Hussein alayhi salam not lose hope at such a tragic time when he is with his family, he is without water, and at the end when his companions, his family, the Bani Hashim are martyred? You see that in the morning of Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam makes the dua, Allahumma anta thiqati fi kulli karbin wa raja'i fi kulli shadda. It's narrated. O Lord, I depend on you in every affliction, and I am hopeful of your blessings in every hardship. I am hopeful of Allah. So Imam Hussein uses the word raja, hope. He has hope in Allah in that day. A believer needs to have hope. Deen and religion is based off of hope. One of the hopes that we have is liqa'ullah, meeting of God. It is something that we are hopeful for. It is something that is for us a great desire, that one day the barriers will be removed and we will see God. With the heart, obviously, with the spirit, not with the eyes, because that's impossible. Mumkin al-wujud is what we see. Things that are necessary existence, those things, they're contingent existence, mumkin, those things you see. But a being that is wajib, that has no contingency, you cannot see. It's not limited to time and space. So therefore we should have a deep yearn to meet God. And how so many people today are afraid of death in this way. The believer should not be afraid of death. Should be very hopeful when it comes to death, because it's meeting with God, meeting with Allah. The believer is also hopeful in the reward that Allah will give him. And that is one of the reasons why you perform so many good deeds, is because you are hopeful in its reward. If you were not hopeful in the reward of God, why would you do good deeds? So one of the big motivators, not the only, one of the big motivators is hope. Quran mentions, when you read the Holy Quran, it mentions that فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ, and so whoever would hope for the meeting with his Lord, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا, let him do righteous work. A person that has hope should then do amal salih. Because if you have no hope in meeting the Lord, you have no hope in getting His gifts and getting His satisfaction and attaining His heaven, then why would we do anything? So the believer, his entire source of motivation is hope. Is hope. If this hope is not there, you'll see that person will not move. That person will not do good deeds. That person will be easily crushed. That person will not be strong. So alhamdulillah, we learn from the lesson of Imam Hussein alayhi salam that look, dear believer, there might be times in your life, yes, it might not be Karbala of Imam Hussein, but for you it's a very difficult time. For you, it's great difficulty. But I learned from my Imam to be hopeful as he was in the morning of Ashura. I am still hopeful that God will relieve and alleviate my grief and my tragedy that is befalling me, my test. Today I'm going to be talking about, while we're getting prepared for Salatul Maghrib, I'm going to be talking about the effects of true hope. Should a person that has hope live life differently than a person that doesn't have hope? Of course he should. What are some of the effects? The first effect that we'll mention tonight is this. How is the life of a hopeful person different? One, he is an optimist. What's an optimistic person? A person that always is thinking of the good things, positive. He's not negative. A pessimist is easily someone that loses hope, cannot continue, and is devastated and is always worried consistently. One of the prophets of God that had hope and that was an optimist was Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. How was Prophet Yaqub? How was he an optimist? Quran mentions that he lost his son Yusuf. And Yusuf, was taken as a young person, maybe at the age of 9 or 12. He was taken and sold off. So the hadith has 20 years. The Prophet Yaqub doesn't see his son. Does he lose hope? Yes or no? No, he doesn't. And the Quran mentions a verse from him. It says, in Surah Yusuf, Ya Baniya, idhabu fatahassasu min Yusuf. So he tells his sons to go out and find out about Yusuf, wa akhihi, and his brother. Does anybody here know what the word fatahassasu means? Tahassus. Yes? Searching. It comes from feeling good. What is the difference from tahassus and tajassus? Yes? One is spying, but also it is investigating. So what would it mean here? Tahassasu compared to tajassus. So some, like Ibn Abbas, some of the commentators use what he says. Ibn Abbas says that tahassus is used to investigate something that is khair. And tajassus is used to investigate something that is shar, that is bad. You investigate someone either to find something good in him. You investigate, for example, to see about his life, to see about what he did and the good and khair. Or in here, for example, something good, you go and find someone. And it can also come from his, some might say this, that has to, with the 5 senses, for example. But tajassus, and some of the mufassirin, in the commentators, they say that tajassus is to find something evil, to find something bad. That is why they use it in a different way in the hadith. Because the hadith mentions, la tajassasu wa la tahassasu. Hadith. Don't do tajassus and then don't do tahassus. So some say in the same way, don't investigate so much. Maybe the meaning could be, don't investigate so much good and bad. Leave the person alone. You want to go through his entire files or whatever he did. Leave him alone. You don't need to investigate. So Prophet Yaqub uses this word, فَتَحَسَّسُوا. Look for khair, look for Prophet Yusuf and his brother. Then he says this in the Quran, and this is if you want to look at the verse 1287. وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. And translated as, do not despair of the relief from Allah. What does rawh mean? Rawh Allah. We're usually used to say rahmatullah, right? The mercy of Allah. But what does rawh Allah mean? Is it the Spirit of God? Or no, does it mean something else? Mufassirin, raise your hands. So, rawh, here it comes from the word nafas. Right? Rawh means nafas. And it's a relief, some say, that right now I want you to hold your breath. I can't because I have to speak. You can hold your breath and let go now. Breathe again now. Breathe. You get comfort, right? You see how good that is? Oxygen fills your lungs, goes to your blood. You feel great. But when you are not breathing, that haps is actually very, in a way, bothering you. But when you breathe, it has easiness and calmness. So that is what they say, rawh means here. That easiness, the rawh Allah. It's like when you start breathing again, like nafas. And this sentence is what I want to use because we're talking about optimism and always being hopeful. It says, إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. The only people that have despair from the relief of Allah are the disbelievers. Would you agree that the true mu'min compared to the disbeliever is much more optimistic, is much more hopeful? Did you ever put yourselves and travel with a bunch of believers, good believers, and something happened in your trip or something, and they were not at all bothered by it, and they had so much hope in Allah, they're so optimistic. But someone that doesn't have belief in Allah, someone that doesn't have that infinite source of power and mercy and wisdom, they're going to lose it very easily. They're going to start, I don't know if it's in the airplane, for example, it has a little bit of turbulence, screaming and shouting, but that believer, the plane is nose diving, and he's still, Allah will help me. Inshallah, Allah will help me. He's not scared. Because awliya of God don't have khawf. La khawfun alayhim wa la yahsanun. They don't have grief. True. The maximum, I'm talking about the maximum level. So who has despair? Who doesn't have hope in this verse? The disbelievers. According to who? Prophet Yaqub in the Quran. So the mafhum of this is that therefore the believer should have hope. The believer should be optimistic. And this is one of the effects of being hopeful, is having that level of optimism. Here in the Mufassirin, one of the other Mufassirin mentions another saying that's like this from Prophet Ibrahim. وَمَنْ يَغْنَتْ مِنْ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُّونَ. And those that have despair from the rahmat and mercy of their Lord, except who? The dhalun, those that are led astray. So according to Quran, those that have despair are two groups of people. The disbelievers and those that are led astray. Why do you think someone that's led astray has despair? Because someone that is dhal, that has left and doesn't understand reality, they have not understood God. Because if you have understood God and you have ma'rifat of God, there's no way you can have yas. No way you could have despair. It means you haven't known God. You haven't known His rahmah. You haven't known His mercy. You haven't understood His power. You haven't understood His wisdom. You don't have ma'rifatullah. So dear believer, these are for us wake-up calls. that if you ever see, I know that we all have trials and tribulations and things are very hard. Honest, either it's monetary, it's family, it has to do with kids, it has to do with marriage, it has to do with our business, it has to do with just how I'm feeling, my health, different things. Remember, never lose hope, because the disbeliever loses hope. Because that person that has not understood God is dhal, is misguided, has lost hope. So the first effect that you should, and to test your iman and test your ma'rifat of God, see how hopeful you are. See how positive you are. You know this, and you've probably traveled with people that are very positive. They're always looking for, never afraid of things, because they always have hope. And actually, if you really think of this, that hopefulness in meeting Imam Zaman and the government of Imam Zaman is also something that is very effective in our own lives, believing in Imam Mahdi. We'll talk about that later. So that was the first. Because we're running out of time, I have to go a little bit faster. Now, actually, we'll just continue with the first. Some people now, they have false hope. Have you ever seen someone that they're so hopeful in God's mercy that they keep saying Allah is going to forgive, God is going to forgive, that they don't even care about the wajibat anymore? That is false hope. Somebody that uses hope as an excuse, it is false hope. Say, God is going to forgive everything, therefore I don't even need to try. There's an interesting hadith in Al-Kafi that a group of people were like this. They come to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and tell him that there was a group of people who were disobeying Allah. They were lying, and they're not really, and they were like this, until they died. They were disobeying Allah, but at the same time they were saying we're hopeful. And they remained thus until their death. They did the haram, for example, sins, and says God's going to forgive, God's going to forgive, and kept continuing to sin until finally they died. And they never changed, this hope never changed them. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam in the hadith in Al-Kafi narrated, mentions that, these people, they are lying. These people are swinging back and forth between their desires. They are using hope as an excuse to do whatever their desires and lower desires want. And the reason for this, the hadith mentions, إِنَّ مَنْ رَجَى شَيْئًا طَلَبًا. So whoever hopes for something seeks it. If you are hopeful in the mercy of Allah, it means that you will seek the mercy of Allah. And when you seek the mercy of Allah, what that means is you will go to Him. You'll seek forgiveness. You'll change your path. That is what Raja does. It pushes you, hope pushes you towards God. So you say, I'm so hopeful, God will forgive me. And you ask for forgiveness. Doesn't mean that I will say, I'm so hopeful in God's mercy, and I never seek His mercy. So you see that there are a group of people that use Raja or hope in the negative way. And the means actually they're not, and to maybe be more specific, they are lying, how Imam Sadiq says. They're just saying, I have the rahmat of Allah. Because if someone truly believes in the mercy of Allah, he would have those conversations with Allah. He would have those du'as with God. He would have that salat with God. And he would seek the mercy of Allah. And again, to say the last thing about this section, that's how in the hadith our scholars should be like. Our scholars should be in a way from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that mentions about al-faqih, kullul faqih. Who is al-faqih, kullul faqih? Who is, the jurist of all the jurists? Who is the best of jurists? Who is the best example of a jurist? Or faqih here means someone who has deep knowledge of Islam, a scholar. Who is the best scholar? It says, Man lam yughannit nas min rahmatillah. A person that doesn't cause despair in the people In a way, he frightens them in his members' pulpits, and everyone's afraid, and they walk out of the majlis, and they say, God will never forgive me. It's too hard. I give up. He doesn't do that. And at the same time, وَلَا يُيِّسْهُمْ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. And he also doesn't cause them to have yes in rahmatillah. وَلَمْ يُؤْمِنْهُمْ مِنْ مَكْرِ اللَّهِ. And also makr is a type of punishment in a clever way. And doesn't cause them to have amn, security from the punishment and the punishments of Allah. What does he do, a faqih? He speaks in a way that causes true hope and causes true fear, balanced. When you leave his majlis, when you leave his talks, at the same time, you have hope in God's mercy, but it's not a false hope where you say, okay, I'm secure now. I don't need to do my wajibat anymore. I don't need to stay away from the haram. I'm very careful. I'm in a balance between khawf and raja. I'm a balance between fear and hope. So the first effect of true hope was optimism. I don't know, has anybody here gone to our youth group? Yes, I don't know anybody here belongs to youth group. We had one of our dear brothers had a nice presentation about hope. In this experiment I learned from dear brother Adi. And it's interesting. This second thing I want to talk about is mentioned in the youth group, then I researched it, is if you have hope, it causes you to strive for things. It causes you to be a fighter. It gives you that encouragement. Let me tell you about a science experiment. And this is a very popular science experiment. In 1950s, Kurt Richter, a professor at Johns Hopkins, did an experiment with drowning rats. Has anybody here heard of this experiment with drowning rats? They probably won't allow them to do such a thing because you're in the youth group, that's why. They won't allow them to do this now because it's cruelty to animals right now. But he took rats and he some of them were wild, some of them were domestic, and he allowed them to drown. He just put them in water. I didn't know this. Seems like they drown very fast. I never tried it. Don't try it at home. And he put the rat in the water, and after 2 minutes, there's another qawl that says 15 minutes. Then when I looked, 2 or 15 minutes, and the rat's drowned. Then domestic or wild. Then they took these rats, and before they're about to drown, they saved them at the last minute. I don't know, did they grab their tiny hand or whatever? I don't know, however, they saved them. And then they put them back in the water. After being saved once, they put them back in the water. Do you know how long these rats swam for after being saved once and having hope that it'll happen again? It happened once. How long do you think they swam for? The first one was 15 minutes. Any guess? 4 or 5 hours? Yeah, 60 hours. Yeah, 60 hours. And that is because little rats, they had that much hope that they were saved once, that somebody can do this again. So this was, you can look at it, you can look at the experiment in Johns Hopkins. It's a psychology experiment of drowning rats. And it shows you that a hopeful rat will swim and struggle and strive and be a fighter. While one that does not have hope, or that didn't happen to, he'll drown. So obviously, this is not something that seems just specific to rats. Anybody is in the same way. If you have hope and you retain that hope, you will fight and you will be have a larger chance to be successful than anyone else. So the third thing is motivation. So the other one was strive to be a fighter, or you can put this in the same category. One of the verses in Quran mentions that وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. It's a very famous verse, 2:186. I'm sure you've heard of this verse, 2:186. One of the beautiful verses of Quran. All of the verses are beautiful, but this is really nice. And when my servants ask you O Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Concerning me, indeed I am near. I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me. So let them respond to me and believe in me. So here it has فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. So let them call upon me, answer me, respond to me, and believe in me. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. Perhaps, la'alla means hopefully, perhaps. Perhaps they will be guided. So when you call upon God, when you believe in Him, perhaps you will be guided. So this verse shows us that one of the motivations when you have hope in God and you believe in Him, you call upon Him, maybe then you will reach completion. Maybe then you'll reach Kamal. So our source of motivation in the Quran is that belief and calling upon Allah. Because I hear it's almost adhan time, a few more minutes, we're going to actually look at, say one thing and then the last point and we'll end inshallah. Actually, no, I'll just say the last point. The last point is this, ease. If a person has hope, he'll be in comfort. As Quran mentions, إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Whoever sees difficulty, there will be ease afterwards. A person that is hopeful will be so calm. A person that is optimistic will be so calm. But a person that does not have hope and is always worried, they'll always be frightened. So if you want to see that calmness, and you see that Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, this one of the saddest du'as we say when he was actually in the madba, Imam Hussein, we can dim the lights a little bit. When he was in the madba, that part before he's going to be slaughtered, we see that ease of Imam Hussein, that everybody was stressed out, was in pressure. Who's going to kill the son of Rasulullah? But one soul there was in complete calmness, and that was Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Amidst all the arrows and axes and daggers and swords that were on his body. The Maqtal says that the body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was like a porcupine. So many arrows hit the holy body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. At such a time with calmness, Sayyid al-Shuhada mentions in dua recorded in Maqtal al-Hussein, Sabran ala qada'ik ya Rab. I have patience upon your decree, my Lord. La ilaha sawak. There is no Lord, deity besides you. Ya qiyath al-mustaghithin. Oh, being who calls upon those and answers the help of those that seek his help. Ma li rabbu siwa. I don't have a Lord but you. You see the calmness of Imam Hussein, because Imam Hussein alayhi salam is hopeful. Wala ma'budu ghayrak. And there is no one worthy of worship besides you. Sabran ala hilmik. Ya qiyath man la qiyath lah. And he calls upon Allah, the help of the people, the person that has no help. Sallallahu alayhi ya Aba Abdullah, ya Allah. We ask you, because of the honor of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and we see the patience that Imam Hussein had, the ease that he had, the hope that he had. Inshallah, may we also have kamal in our iman, inshallah, have perfection in our hope, have perfection in the way that we understand Allah, and may we be truly of the hopeful. May we leave this majlis and take a step towards hopefulness more, inshallah, and from now on, do not look at life, do not look at the way that God treats us in a negative way. Be positive. Ya Allah, it is the night of Thursday night. Have mercy upon our marhumin, inshallah. Answer our du'as. Many people have hawa'ij and needs. Answer them, inshallah. Cure the sick, feed the poor. All those that are looking for relief, give them relief. And expedite the return of Imam Zaman with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.